Hello everybody! Raiders of Blackveil combines three main genres of games. It has the combat flow of a MOBA, paired with the run-to-run random elements of a roguelike, with the perma-progression and itemization of an action RPG on top of it all. And having played literally more than 30,000 hours across those three genres, I can safely tell you that Raiders of Blackveil nails each of the core aspects of the genres that it derives from. For example, in a MOBA, the most important aspect of combat is having hard-hitting responsive abilities with a long enough cooldown such that you never get bored just spamming stuff 24/7, Earth mode, but also a cooldown short enough such that you never get bored waiting around constantly for your cooldowns to, actually be up. Furthermore, roguelikes need fun and interesting upgrades that are handed out frequently. Key word there. And finally, ARPGs need loot that is worth grinding for. Loot that is both common and powerful enough to get that power fantasy up and going immediately, but, and more importantly, loot that also becomes increasingly rarer and more powerful given randomly rolled stats, especially the unique and legendary effects, to overall give you that chase feeling of constantly looking for a new upgrade. Raiders of Blackveil, again, understands all of this. So if what I just described sounds like a good time to you, a MOBA ARPG roguelike, then you should absolutely check out Raiders of Blackveil, link in the description below. Also, this video is sponsored, so big thank you to Wombo Games. Check out their official gameplay trailer in the description below as well. Anyway, the early access launch of Raiders of Blackveil occurs on July 11th. You can play the demo and wishlist the game right now in the meantime, but the footage that you see is of the early access version that you'll expect on July 11th rather than the demo version, so allow me to tell you what you can expect come mid-July. Fast, responsive combat, a plethora of in-run upgrades to choose from, and even more to unlock, with a multifaceted permanent progression system that never feels like a chore to grind through. I'll start by covering that last point first. How many roguelites with a T have you played before, where you boot up the game, get swarmed after 10 or 15 minutes in your first run, lose, go back to the main menu screen, open the upgrades tab, and then see a bunch of marginal stat increases that have a linear benefit with an exponentially scaling cost to them? Then you realize that the game is entirely balanced around you having those permanent upgrades instead of having, actually powerful and interesting temporary things inside of each run, which then causes you to say, nope, and then Alt F4. None? Just me? I've only played those games? Okay. Well, regardless, thankfully, Raiders of Blackveil does not share that problem. It does have an unlock system that requires currency to progress, but is not just a bunch of linear stat increases, but rather a bunch of gameplay altering things like spawning healing rooms, granting an extra life, giving higher chance at rarer loot, enabling entirely new stats to roll on gear, and while you're actually playing each run, you have direct control over what type and how much of a given currency you want to bring back with you when the run is done. Have most of the cool stuff already unlocked? All right, focus on getting more powerful in that specific run rather than hoarding a bunch of stuff to then sell to the vendor and upgrade your next run. And the opposite is obviously also true. Furthermore, the loot that you get, it's permanent. You can equip a helmet, body armor, boots, gloves, an amulet, 2 rings, and of course a weapon, all of which will never go away unless you, drop it inside of a run and then quit the game or, sell it to a vendor. Plus, there's a stash tab where if you change your character, you can simply take all of the gear off of your current character, place it in the stash, and then put it on the next character that you swap to. And nope, no level requirements either. If you got it, you can use it. Your gear acts as an entirely separate and always active multiplier to your runs, creating an extremely satisfying perma-progression experience, especially given those core roguelike gameplay elements that I haven't even covered yet, but now I will. They're good. Everything you want in a roguelike is here. Cool effects, multiple avenues to upgrade, synergies between those avenues, and of course, good old RNG. There are actually straight up slot machines that spawn in your run, which you can gamble for more black coin, which is the currency that resets between your runs, and you can get things like vials, which give you those pesky linear stat increases that I mentioned earlier. But hey, guess what? They're not actually pesky at all here, because they're a part of the progression that resets from run to run. A 5% cooldown or damage reduction boost gets a whole heck of a lot stronger when the game lets you stack them over and over and over, given that they'll be gone in the next run. And on top of that, remember that everything is framed in MOBA combat. Your abilities directly synergize off of one another, and their power is largely gated by however long their cooldown is. So if you gamble and get 4 cooldown reduction boosts in a single zone, it's going to create a massive impact in your overall run. Extrapolate all of this scaling further, apply it to the multitude of the other stats and systems, and you can start to see just how satisfying it is to get a god run in in this game. And the best part, it's definitely not a baby game. Obviously, and with any roguelike, the RNG of your run can drastically affect how you experience each of the encounters, but for the most part, things are tuned in such a way that you'll really feel the impact of your first 1 or 2 big upgrades, which then allow you to steamroll the next handful of zones, but that power will start to fade rather quickly if you don't get further upgrades of the similar magnitude. But if you do get those upgrades, well, just keep going and going and going. There's an infinitely scaling difficulty meter which scales faster the longer your run goes. Good luck. And while healing is plentiful enough to not have each encounter feel frustrating with the inevitable chip damage that you take, the game does make you pay close attention to the total amount of mistakes that you make in a run, given the injury mechanic. Any damage past a certain threshold to your max health will cause injury, which temporarily reduces your maximum health to that injury threshold until you fix it. This is where a different recovery mechanic comes into play, true healing. It obviously not only recovers your current missing health like normal healing, but it also heals an equal amount of injury, which lets you go back to a more aggressive playstyle if you desire. The linear stat increases and the healing are two rather minor mechanics to the overall run, especially compared to the main juice, the perk system. Whenever you're given a perk reward, you can choose between 2 classes, such as the warrior or the mage, and then choose one of 3 options given to you from that selected class. These options have different rarities, with the rarer ones usually providing more power, obviously, but I say usually because given the plethora of options between perks and the other scalars to your run, a lower rarity perk might actually end up giving you more overall power due to whatever its explicit effect is. Just because it's a more common option doesn't necessarily mean it's less powerful. Oh, and there are synergies between these different classes, with each synergy having multiple levels to it based on how many perks you've selected in that given class. Look, if it sounds like there's a lot going on here, it's because it is. But I think I've done enough explaining here. I'll leave you with a brief bit of gameplay so that you can better understand what I've discussed here. And remember to check out those links in the description below. Play the demo right now for Raiders of Blackveil, wishlist it, and keep an eye on it for the July 11th early access release. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.